Every leap in American history has needed breakthrough energy.
Ignition, liftoff.
Now, AI is here, and Chevron is working to power it. We're aiming to develop multi-gigawatt power plants near data centers, designed with future pathways to lower carbon intensity. AI gets the power it needs, communities get the jobs, and the grid stays strong. Powering AI today builds America's next superpower.
What's going on? I'm Arch Manning, Viore athlete and college quarterback. Whether I'm running, training, traveling, or just unwinding at home, I love doing it in my core shorts from Viore. With a breathable boxer brief liner, they're quick to dry, super versatile, and stand up to even my most intense training sessions. Plus, they come in 3 inseams and a ton of colors. Ready to try a pair? Go to viore.com/arch and get 20% off at checkout. I think you're going to love them as much as I do. That's viore.com/arch and get 20% off your first order. Exclusions apply. Visit the website for full terms and conditions. Not only will you receive 20% off your first purchase, but enjoy free shipping on any U.S. orders over $75 and free returns. Have a great day.
Hey friends, this is Audie Cornish, host of CNN This Morning and The Assignment, and guess what? Every story you care about, every angle you want unpacked is now streaming on CNN. That means you can catch my show or other CNN programming whenever you want on your favorite device. And a subscription also gets you access to exclusive video series and unlimited articles. So subscribe to CNN at cnn.com/subscription.
Hello everyone, I'm Chris Wynn and welcome to How We're the Podcast as we gather for this week's Sunday supplement where we're going to go back through another late show at the Stadium of Light because Sunderland drew 2-2 with league leaders Arsenal, and in some ways it feels like we won the game because of the nature of a late goal, but because of our performance yesterday. But it does mean that ahead of Sunday's fixtures, we still sit in a Champions League place, so we can watch Liverpool travel to Manchester City, knowing weirdly that it can impact us. But we've got a lot to get through and little time as always. So first up, I have Mr. Optimism, or Mr. Pint Half Full, or completely full as it was last night for a brief period. It is, of course, Gavin Henderson.
Hello, mate. Yeah, my mate Matt here was on the reaction pod for a little bit. He says, "My cup's not half full, it's overflowing. It's ridiculously overflowing." So, yes. And I said we would get something, and I'm just telling you that I want to be on record as saying that. I mean, I did say it would be 1-0 Granit Xhaka, but I'll take what we got in the end. I definitely think that we lived up to our pre-match optimism. By the end of the game, we were brilliant.
Yeah, and that's it. But weirdly, we don't say your pint is ever empty, but I'm sure it was quite a few times last night. So how was the atmosphere after the game in town?
Oh, it was unbelievable, mate. It was bouncing, absolutely bouncing. You kind of touched on it there. Like people genuinely reacted as though we'd won because it was just yet another late goal for Sunderland, and it was a draw, but what a draw it was. And when you got into the town, people were just enjoying it. I think there's a real feeling at the minute, Chris, and it's certainly in my view because I've changed my kind of routines around a match day, but they all feel like big events, and I'm really making the most of it, and I'm going into town and I'm having a good time with my mates after the game and before the game. And like that's just not been the case for so long now. So yeah, town was jumping, and the mince and dumplings and chips from Baker's Oven at 2 a.m. tasted even sweeter after Brian Brobbey's goal.
They must see you coming as soon as you come past the window. They're rubbing their hands together.
Tell me anywhere else in the world you can get mince and dumplings at 2 a.m. than Sunderland. It's fantastic, isn't it?
I tell my mates down south, and I'm sure they still don't believe us. But anyway, yeah, sounds amazing. And then Dave Bruce was enjoying it as well, wasn't he?
He did. He was in the Rabbits with his family and his friends, bopping around. Nice to see a club official out and enjoying themselves in the town. Hey, you can't blame the guy. He must feel like God at the minute. He must look around that stadium and just go, I've had a big hand in this. I'd be on top of the world if I was him. So I didn't blame him.
Yeah, absolutely. Why not enjoy it? But to help us along, we have a very good friend of the podcast who spoke to us last time from London following his trip to watch Sunderland at Selhurst Park. And we're very pleased to welcome a legend of North East sports reporting, which is, of course, Jeff Brown. Hello, Jeff.
Good morning, Chris. How you doing?
I'm good, because like we keep saying, it does feel like we've beaten the league leaders, doesn't it?
I know, you'd think at the end of a week where we've taken 2 points from 2 home games, you think, that's terrible, we should have won one of those. And it just feels like a fantastic week, the way they recovered from that awful first half hour against Everton to not only get something out of it, but, finish up looking like they could have won it. As you say, the whole atmosphere yesterday, I just looked around me, and you see the joy on people's faces at the final whistle, and you think, wow, this is just great, and we just got to enjoy it. It may last till the end of the season and beyond. Let's hope it does, but you really have got to enjoy it. I can remember saying to my mates, being in the pub round about the Reedy years, by which time we'd been following the team for 30 years, and everyone was getting really excited, and I remember saying to them, enjoy it. We've waited this long. You never know how long it's going to last. It lasted about 2 years. And we've had to wait another 25 years to get anything like it. So I'm just lapping it up. It's fantastic.
That's it. We just need to really kind of enjoy the moment as it stands. But look, let's get into the game, and let's get into the kind of, the head of the game, because I want to talk to you, Gav, about the starting 11, because it's not like Red Disagree to name an unchanged side for the third time in a row.
Yeah, that was my prediction as well. But I felt he might change the shape. But look, he obviously just wanted some consistency with the defence. I kind of alluded to it last week when I spoke to Martin and Jason Jones after the game last weekend. I felt like there was almost one eye on the games to come in the team selection, because I could definitely see us having that defence against Arsenal, and obviously we did. Obviously, the news that came along with Omar Alderete not being available kind of helps things, doesn't it? Because then he doesn't have another player to think about, and that might have changed who he selected. But no, he kept the same team, and like I just said, I think it's a lot to do with just needing some consistency because the games are so close together. I think he just needed to have that consistency in selection, the familiarity of the players, and after the game, when he was asked for his thoughts on the performance, Regis Labrise talked about finishers. He didn't call them substitutes. He often does this. He calls them finishers, and I think there's a real realization in the squad that, all right, you're not starting the game, but you will have a role to play when you come off the bench. We need you to do something, and so like, yeah, he doesn't change. He doesn't often do that where he picks the same team, but you kind of have to forget it. That's the team that started the game, but during the match he tweaked things. He brought players on. He made things different for us. He made really positive attacking changes. So ultimately, yes, he picked the same 11, but the players who came off the bench were different, all played different roles to what they've played in recent weeks, and ultimately, as we'll get on to, contributed towards the point.
Yeah, Gav's saying that he got the prediction right, and I wasn't sure what he was going to do, but I felt before the game, Jeff, that he was almost going to go back to almost the way we set up at Chelsea. I felt he was going to almost set up almost like it was an away game, and it came out like that. It was almost the same game plan, wasn't it?
Yes, I mean it did have that feel about it. With 35% possession, is not often you get that in a home game. But hey, it's Arsenal. Look at. I mean, I know they top the league, but they hadn't played anyone until they've played us yesterday. But and then 10 game winning run. What can you do? You're going to be under pressure because the best teams in the country, the best teams in Europe have struggled to cope with them. And we just did it really well. And I think and the crowd got it as well. They're not screaming at us to get out and get stuck in. It was about containment and frustrating them, which we definitely did in the first half. And then you knew, there is always one chance, no matter how much you're on the back foot during a game. Every team has a chance in a game, and there's that early one for Isidore. You knew he was going to have a shot because he does, doesn't he? Even though it was an unlikely angle, he was ever going to beat Ray with 8 clean sheets behind him. But then Dan Ballard gets up there and shows tremendous footwork to go from his left to just absolutely thrash it with his right was unbelievable.
Yeah, we'll go on. And if I had £1 for every time the Sky commentator said that this is Arsenal's toughest test of the season, I'd be a very rich man this morning. But just quickly, Jeff, because one thing just ahead of the game and this is the thing that I feel the media and reporters absolutely love getting their teeth into. But Sunderland shifted the position of the advertising boards. And because Michele can do a long throw without too much kind of run up, but Declan Rice needs a big long run up. So we moved the thing in. The cameras even went on the position where the advertisement boards were previously. But it's these sort of things. And Lebris had a real kind of wry grin on his face when he was asked about it before the game and after the game. But he just basically said, look, he said, we're playing possibly the best side in Europe, and these little things matter.
Yeah, of course they do. You're going to use every advantage that you can, aren't you, to try and squeeze something out of it. And yeah, it was when I got in, I looked down and thought, oh yeah, you can see how far they moved in. You're right. The touchline cameraman was by the dugout was in his normal position. I went, that's very interesting. Yeah, and obviously, and the way that they'll use a dry ball rather than using the one that's been, Michele will use the ball that's on the touchline rather than the one that's just gone out to play to throw. All little things, that they're obviously they do their homework, and I say in the first half in particular, they just played it absolutely spot on.
Yeah, that's it. And just Gav, just in terms of the atmosphere, because the atmosphere seemed fantastic. Of course, Remembrance Day, and it was a very kind of poignant show that Sunderland put on. But it does kind of, Remembrance Day always does seem to build up that atmosphere. But it was one of them where you just knew that the crowd knew their place for that game, that they had to make it intimidating for Arsenal.
Yeah, it was just on the remembrance service. It was impeccably observed. Everybody done the bit. But there's just something about playing in the stadium light under the lights, isn't there? And I think because people had that extra couple of hours in the pub, it made a big difference to how the atmosphere went. Oh, look, the atmosphere's been fantastic all season, but I think you're right. When I wouldn't say we viewed ourselves necessarily as massive underdogs, but there was a feeling that we are the underdogs, and for us to get over the line, the fans are going to have to play their part. And I mean, if you look back to that, all the way back to that Coventry game last season, which we still talk about all the time, the crowd have made such a difference in these moments. And I think when you see it play out before your own eyes repeatedly, people are then turning up at the stadium with a different attitude, and they're turning up and think, actually, no, we have got a part to play in this. And it was evident right throughout the performance. The fans and the players were in synergy. There is a reason we keep picking up points late in games at the Stadium of Light. And it's the attitude of the players, but it's also the attitude of the supporters. And I've seen a massive shift in the ground from supporters who for years and years now. How often have we whinged about people leaving early, for instance? And getting to the 85th minute and going, I best get myself away. We've scored that many important late goals that people are now like, I shouldn't leave the ground here, because if I do, I'm likely to miss something. And if you'd left before Brobbey scored, more fool you, because how many times have we done that? And like I say, the fans have been so important. It was definitely in there at times. I mean, I'm in the southwest corner where generally is quite loud, but I'm looking out around the span of the stadium, in the north stand, the east stand, they're all up on their feet. Kelvin on the reaction pod, or it might have been actually after we finished recording, but Kelvin was up in the Premier Concourse for a change. And he said up there it was absolutely jumping up in the Premier Concourse even. So, yeah, fans have played such an important part. And I think the players know that, don't they? You can see the way they chuck their arms up and they get on with it and stuff. That I think between themselves they've realised, look, for us to get a good result in a game, we need them with us. And Oh, yeah, unbelievable. I mean, we're just creating so many memorable moments with this team. I mean, we're going to be looking back at games like this Arsenal one, like as some of the greatest nights at the Stadium of Light that we've ever had, I think.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of it's to do with the fans.
Yeah, I just need to stop myself saying it was a good 3 points. That's all. That's the only thing about it. But Jeff, I mean, going into that atmosphere and that first kind of that first period, well, the first 5 or so minutes, you could see that Sunderland were riding the 11 on the pitch were riding that atmosphere, and they were in Arsenal's faces. And I felt actually Arsenal was so kind of not maybe shocked by it, but they wanted to kill it off, and you could see that Arsenal. And I think Arteta's a bit like this in terms of the dark arts, and he's a bit like Mourinho, where I do think a couple of the Arsenal players went down for periods just thinking we need to just have a period where nothing's happening here, just to kill off this atmosphere and kill off Sunderland being on top of us.
I must admit, that was the first thing that I thought when Mourinho went down, when in that challenge with Dan Ballard, which even Alan Shearer thought wasn't a penalty. I never crossed my mind, to be fair. But yes, he did spend an awful lot of time down there, and that same thought crossed my mind. And just running back to the pre-match, we should say the display, the poppy display of the flags was absolutely astonishing. I mean, the entire ground, and it was just a lovely start of the game, but it did get people fired up. And as Gav was saying about staying till the end, the fans till the end. You've got to stay at the end now. Last year, I did have a conversation with David Bruce at one stage, who was saying, "What do we do? What do we do to keep the fans? Because it's affecting the team. They notice. They were flying high last season, and they said we get the end of games, and they said they'd turn around, and the stadium's all half empty, and they were thinking, well, what is this all about?" And I said, well, it's got to be led by the team. It's the team that keeps, it's the team that keeps the fans there, and it's the team that gets them stoked up as well. Should also say the bridge, the new Kiel crossing. Obviously, I'm sure that has helped people think, actually, I can get into town quickly now. But it's all part of everything. There's so many big things happening around the club and in the city at the moment, and it's all part of that sort of feel good factor that everyone's got. But yeah, great start. I think I looked at the patterns of play, and it was a lot of possession at the beginning, a lot of possession at the end, not much in the middle. But yeah, I'm sure Arteta was telling them just to try and kill the atmosphere a bit, and just try and get a foothold in the game, which obviously they did very quickly.
Yeah, well, they did, Jeff, and just on that, because they did pen us in. But that we because we had that solid structure again that we had at Chelsea, that Arsenal pinned us in after that first kind of 10 minutes. Well, basically after Mourinho got back up on his feet, they kind of pinned us in terms of territory and possession. But we had them at arm's length, and I always felt comfortable. And we're going to go through periods like this against teams like Arsenal. But the way we manage it now, that we limited them to almost no chances during that time.
They're just very disciplined, aren't they? They are very disciplined. The way they keep the two banks, the 4 and the 5, and then change whenever they get the chance to break out. And all this without Alderete, who I think everyone thought, oh no, but they missed him for one of the biggest games of the season. It's you never felt they were going to really cause any great damage until they started moving it a bit quicker and pressing a bit harder in the second half.
Yeah. I mean, Gav, I'm looking. There was a Lafayette mistake just after 20 minutes, which I'm just mentioning because we'll come back to that for obvious reasons. But Jeff's already mentioned the Isidore chance shot on the angle when Siddiqui played a fantastic ball through. But there was a challenge on Siddiqui around this time where it went over the top of the ball and landed on Siddiqui's kind of on his foot. And I was really surprised that this wasn't looked at by VAR. But just generally, Gav, because I did think it almost helped the atmosphere in the ground. The referee was very, very strange in terms of he gave a yellow card, I think, to Hume, I think it was, but Calafiore got away with all sorts. I mean, he could have been sent off twice throughout the game. but the ref was playing his part, and Arteta as well. I mean, every kind of challenge, he was on the sidelines, he was whinging about, moaning about, but it was a sign that I think Arteta knew what type of game they were in.
Yeah, on the referee, I told you before we hit record, I've just seen a video from Arsenal Fan TV, the guy who runs their channel or whatever, kicking off about the ref, saying the referee was terrible and all this. And I'm thinking, hang on, I said if he was terrible for anybody, it was for us. He gave us nout, really, to be honest. There were various moments during the game, wasn't there? There was a few sort of dodgy decisions, even in their box, where we were maybe looking at it and going, could we have gotten a penalty there, which were never referred or anything, or they didn't even care about giving the decision. But look, I think we've become accustomed to it. We shouldn't have to, but I think we've kind of become accustomed to the fact that, like every league we've played in over the last decade or so, referees just aren't particularly great. And you've kind of got to, sometimes you've got to referee the game yourself in terms of how you impose yourself on the game. And I think we were very physical, and I don't think Arsenal liked that, but we had to be to get something from the game. On Arteta, I cannot stand him, honestly. I can't stand the bloke. I'm watching him jump up and down and going crackers about even throw-ins and stuff, and I'm just thinking, you look at Regis Lebris and you see how, I don't think I've ever seen him do that. The way Arteta reacted to a ball going out for a throw-in, I've never seen Lebris. Don't you think Lebris acted like that when we got promoted? Like, I've never seen him that animated. I just don't like Arteta very much, if I'm honest. But it was nice to see that we pissed on his cornflakes. He wasn't happy at all, was he? And look, I think that was very clear before the game. If Sunderland were going to get something, if we were going to do anything, we had to. We couldn't allow Arsenal to do what they've done to a lot of teams this season, which was just overpower them and be physical and dominant in that sense. Nobody's going to bully Sunderland. Nobody. The players just don't allow it. Granit Xhaka doesn't allow it. Nordi Mukiele doesn't allow it. Importantly, Dan Ballard doesn't allow it. So yeah, if the referee's not going to give you the decisions, then just put yourself about and see what you can get. And look, in the end, we got exactly what we deserved. But I think it came. I actually, just on the topic of physicality, I was watching the highlights before we recorded, and I think it was the commentator said something like about the Brobbey goal. I don't think I've ever seen Gabriel pushed around like that. It was something along those lines. And I just thought it was kind of the running theme of the game, was that we were very, very physical and we had to be to get anything at all.
Yeah, never mind Dan Ballard not allowing it. I don't think anybody tries it when they see Dan Ballard. But the first goal did come, Jeff, and you've already touched on it. It was 35 minutes. And I just want to rewind it a little bit, because I think to start the whole thing off, I think Isidore, who played that lone role up front, he won that free kick, and he did things like this all night, where he picked the ball up in the middle of our half and basically turned and won the free kick. And he did, when you have that role up front, these are the things you've got to do. You've got to drop deep, pick up the ball when we're trying to get it clear, and win us a free kick and get us out. And then we went straight out of the Sam Allardyce kind of book of free kicks in your own half, because Robin Roofs just came out and spun the ball out. And then you knew what was happening. And the ball kind of, was looped up, and Dan Ballard went up for the first challenge, missed it. But I think Mukiele, and I think this is in terms of our recruitment, the intelligence of some of these players, because his header was cushioned into Ballard's path. I mean, he didn't just keep it alive and put it into an area. He cushioned into Ballard's path. Ballard took that first touch, and I think Darren Bent kind of summed it up on the analysis, where he just said, from that distance, you just smash it as hard as you can. And he absolutely did, nearly took the net off. And it was his, of course, against his former team, first goal with his feet for 2 years. But again, Dan Ballard, and this is what we're needing. Defenders are popping up with goals this season, and it was another brilliant one.
It was absolutely fantastic. It reminded me, the speed of the shot reminded me of Cornet against Everton. Do you remember that one?
Yeah.
When he just absolutely thrashed it into the roof of the net. Ballard, I always remember when we signed him, a mate of mine is a Millwall fan, where he'd been on loan the previous season. He got in touch and and said how devastated they were that he wasn't coming back, and that in that season, Arsenal had a bit of an injury crisis, and he said they were all convinced that Ballard was going to be recalled because they thought then he could go straight into the Premier League, and this was about 5 years ago, when we signed him. So I've always, at the back of my mind, I've always thought, keep an eye on this kid. He's he's obviously, he's impressed people. He's going to be something, and he's just grown into it, and he's grown into. He looks every inch a Premier League player, even though he's only played 9, 10, 11 Premier League games. And Isidore as well, I should say. I think a lot of people were thinking, is he going to be able to cut it in the Premier League? And I think just that first goal, getting that first goal on opening day against West Ham, gave him the confidence. And he gets involved. He doesn't. His heading's still not for a striker. He's not the greatest in the air, but he puts himself about and gets involved. And everything leading up to that goal was just fantastic. And of course, the old Desperate Dan celebration at the end was great. It was one of those great moments. And then the first thing you do is look at the clock and think, how long's left? Still an hour.
Well, that's it. About half an hour of injury time, I think, as well. But Gav, I mean, I'll let you talk about the goal. But I just want to stop on Dan Ballard as well, because I don't want, because you know what the media are like, and we've got Jeff with us. But there's going to be this narrative built where Dan Ballard's just this big, tough, burly defender. All he can do is head the ball. All he can do is tackle, elbow, and all this sort of stuff. But I tell you what, I think Dan Ballard in the Premier League has proven how good a footballer he is. If you watch him, how he whips us out, from defence and plays those balls into feet. I think I want people to give him credit that he's actually a good footballer.
Yeah. I think he's improved so much over a short space of time. I remember us talking quite a lot last season about how we felt 2024 it was a pretty poor year for Dan Ballard. I think it kind of started with the performance in that FA Cup game against Newcastle, and for the rest of the year, I think he just really struggled. It was, he couldn't stay fit. Then when he was in the team, he looked like he was lacking something. But you can't say that he's been anything other than a huge success in the Premier League. He's been absolutely unbelievable. I mean, we can talk about the goal and what a touch as well to set the shot up, by the way. His touch is fantastic, and he levers it, but it's still a brilliant finish. It was an absolutely excellent goal. But then, and we'll get onto it, I'm sure, but right at the end, that block he makes in the 97th minute, he's got everything. He's, I've got a feeling, like, not to get too carried away, which I know I'm often accused of, but I've just got a feeling that we're going to look at some of these players like Dan Ballard in 10, 15, 20 years and talk about them in the way that Kelvin does about Dave Watson, or we do about Bawley, or, you know what I mean? Like this week, we did a pod, the Remember When pod, and looking back at games in the past, and we were talking about that game against Arsenal where Stan Varga made his debut. Look, you'd be talking about that Dan Ballard performance in the same breath. That's how good it was. From start to finish, he was absolutely excellent. And I'm looking at him now and I'm thinking, how much is he worth? Like, what would it cost to buy Dan Ballard now? A player who does that? Because there are, I tell you what, you see he doesn't get the credit, and he probably doesn't, but I think these days clubs want old-fashioned defenders who just would rather die than let a ball get past them. And there's not many of them about these days. There's been a whole sort of movement over the last sort of decade or two, maybe because of Guardiola, but we can't blame him for everything. But of like converting defenders into midfield players almost. You want everybody to play out from the back and carry the ball out, which Ballard can do and some of the other lads can do. But first and foremost, he isn't scared to hurt himself to win a block or a header, and he's physical and he's dominant. And I just think we've kind of seen a shift in the game where like managers like Labrie see Dan Ballard and they go, if we put him in the box, who's going to get near him? He's too good at what he does. You don't, if you can't get a centre forward like Niall Quinn these days, someone who you can get the ball up to win with it, why not push Ballard forward and he can act like a striker? And that's I think that's what he's started doing. Actually, he started going up for. He's even popping up in them positions when we haven't got a set piece. He's being allowed to go forward, get into the box, and create havoc. And the goal he scored, I think you'll probably see him score 3 or 4 more like that this season because he's just so effective, isn't he?
Yeah. I know I don't look old enough, but I did see Charlie Hurley play. And on a podcast, you're not going to see how old I am. But so my first season was Charlie Hurley's last season, and I think for fans even older than me, that's who they compare him to. I mean, Charlie was considered to be one of the first ball-playing centre halves, who would bring the ball out of defence, just like Ballard does. Well, like most defenders who put like Ballard can, but also, he'd come up for corners, and you just know that ball was going to be attracted to his head. Obviously, the Irish connection as well. I mean, we forget Dan Ballard. We're saying he's only played a handful of Premier League games, 32 caps for Ireland. And he's got a lot of experience at the top level that maybe people don't always think about. But there are definite hints of Charlie Hurley about him, and he's certainly got the ability to be a folk hero in that same sort of Charlie Hurley mould. Whether he stays for till the end of his career, which would be lovely, doesn't happen very often these days. But I'm sure there will be a lot of clubs looking at him and thinking, "Oh, he's an interesting one."
Yeah, especially when Mikel Arteta said that every time he went forward, he caused absolute chaos. And I think he said that a couple of times. But I think that's a good point. That before we go into how Sunderland won all 3 points, I think that's a good time for us to take a quick break. We'll be back after these few adverts.
This episode is brought to you by Marqeta. When it comes to your payments provider, you can't afford to compromise. Marqeta's modern payment solutions flex with your business without the trade-offs. Stable and agile, secure and innovative, scalable and configurable. If they say you can't have it all, don't believe them. Your business demands more. Choose a payments provider that delivers more. Choose Marqeta. Visit marqeta.com/Spotify to learn more.
This podcast is brought to you by Carvana. Carvana lets you buy your next car on your terms. Explore a massive inventory online, filter for what matters, and find your perfect match. Then choose delivery to your home or pick it up at one of Carvana's iconic car vending machines. Every car also comes with a 7-day money-back guarantee, so you can make sure it's the right fit. Buy your car on Carvana. Delivery or pickup fees may apply. Limitations and exclusions may apply. See our 7-day return policy at Carvana.com.
Carvana. Running a business comes with a lot of what-ifs. But luckily, there's a simple answer to them. Shopify. It's the commerce platform behind millions of businesses, including Thrive Cosmetics and Momofuku. And it'll help you with everything you need. From website design and marketing to boosting sales and expanding operations, Shopify can get the job done and make your dream a reality. Turn those what-ifs into... Sign up for your $1 per month trial at shopify.com/special offer.
Welcome back to How We're the Podcast. We're just going to get into what happened after Sunderland opened the scoring. But Jeff, I just want to quickly talk about that first half performance, just to sum it up, because I do think that was the best 45 minutes of the season. When I just think it was the perfect game plan. And I do think it was similar to Chelsea, but I think we executed a bit better. We essentially kept one of the best sides in Europe at arm's length. We doubled up on Saka with Ronaldo and Lafay. I thought they were unbelievable on that side. Xhaka and Siddiqui almost controlled that midfield in terms of just keeping Arsenal exactly where we wanted them. But as a 45-minute performance, I thought that was almost perfection.
Yeah. It wasn't one of the sexiest games you'll ever see, and it wasn't full of chances but in the context of who were playing and the form that Arsenal have been in, hadn't conceded a goal for 812 minutes. Absolutely astonishing, going for a club record number of consecutive clean sheets. And the way the crowd stuck with them, as I said earlier, not one, screaming at them to get a foot in and get a tackle in, but just playing that game, that game plan. And it was a very satisfying first 45 minutes. but we all knew it was going to be even tougher in the second half.
Yeah, we did. And then just getting into that second half, Gav, because it started off and actually I found it a little bit strange when we came out for the second half, because straight away Geertruida was really casual on the ball. And you could just see Arsenal cranking it up a bit when they realised that we just slowed the tempo down a little bit. The atmosphere had dropped, as it sometimes does at half time, because people going for a pint, people filtering back in for 5 minutes. And then, you know, it was less than 10 minutes into the second half where they got that equaliser, and it was Lafay. You know, we kept the ball really strangely. We kept going backwards with the ball. Xhaka had the ball, and then he was striding out, and Michele was striding out with the ball, then came back. And then Lafay twisted and turned for no real reason when he had options on the ball. But then, you know, Declan Rice won the ball back, and they had a touch out wide to Saka, and Roofs was beating at his near post. But it was so frustrating that Arsenal, as we keep saying, one of the best sides in Europe, we gifted them an equaliser.
Yeah, very frustrating, and you know, the quality they've got, you cannot do what we did, because they will make you pay. Particularly Bukayo Saka, by the way, who's an unbelievable footballer, isn't he? But we made it very easy for them to get back into it, and yeah, I kind of touched on this on the reaction pod. Like, I don't want to slaughter Lafay too much for that, because I do think they were probably told to get a foot on the ball and try and dictate the tempo for a little bit. So I'm not saying Reggie Slibby's told them to spin and twist and lose the ball, but you know what I mean. There was definitely a game plan there to just hold on to possession a little bit, and yeah, look, we got caught out. At this level, that's what happens. In the Championship, you can probably get away with that, but you can't at the top end of the Premier League, which is where we're now competing. And you know, it is what it is. You know, we've just got to make sure we don't do it again. That's all you can say, really. I think, look, with these players, particularly Lafay, they've got a lot of change in the bank. You know, it's probably the first time he's made that kind of mistake. As long as it doesn't become a repeat pattern type thing, you know, I'm sure we can allow it once or twice a season. If it's going to happen, it's going to happen. We've benefited from it. Teams have done it against us, and we've scored goals. I don't want to pile into the lad too much, but it was silly. It was very silly, and I'm sure he'll learn very quickly that in the Premier League you cannot get away with what he did, which was just hanging on the ball in a dangerous position. You're right. He had passes on left and right, and he decided to hold on to it. Gets dispossessed by Declan Rice, who's obviously one of the best at his job in the world. So, you know, you're not only doing it against a good team, you're doing it against one of the best one of the best in the world at what he does. And Saka's a fantastic finisher, and to be fair, when we finished it really well, didn't he? It was a good goal. Yeah. But yeah, frustrating that we were so lax days coming out after half time. I think we've done that. We have done that quite a bit. If I'm honest, I think sometimes we are a little bit slack. We weren't on Monday. We come flying out the blocks on Monday because we had a reason to. But sometimes when we're in the lead, we're guilty of doing that, where you feel like we just need to rocket up our backsides. And I mean, I think the conceding the goal gave us the rocket up the backside, but you would rather have not conceded and hung on to it, because, I mean, we'll get on to their second goal, obviously, but when you think about it, we gifted them the first one, and then the second was a wonder goal. We weren't beaten by fantastic play in those moments. We kind of shot ourselves in the foot with the first goal.
Yeah, well, we do have to remember who we were playing, Jeff, because, you know, they took it up a couple of gears, especially after that equaliser, and they realised they were on top, because they started carving us open, little one-touch play around the edge of the box. They started getting through, finding the gaps. I think that they hit that. We made 3 substitutions just after the hour, because Regis Labris saw the writing on the wall. He saw what was happening, so he made the triple substitution. Just a couple of minutes after that, they hit the bar with a half volley from the edge of the box, and I saw some stats just after that said they had 70% of the possession in the second half, but you still felt there was a chance in us. But a few minutes later, as Gav touched on, Trossard put Arsenal into the lead, but they did need this moment of magic. And I think, you know, when you look at the goal again, it was that overlap. I think it was Calafiori down that left-hand side for Arsenal. He took Sadiqi's attention just away, and Sadiqi took that one sidestep too many. And he just and it's in the Premier League against players like Trossard, that one sidestep is all he needs to come inside. But, I mean, the thing is, he's still got to do a finish like that and beat Roofs. well, into the roof of the net, if you like. But it's still an unbelievable goal.
It was, yeah. They did such a good job keeping Trossard quiet in the first half, and Saka as well to a large extent. But as we've said, players of this quality, if you give them the sniff of an opening, and yeah, the annoying thing was that Siddiqui actually pointed towards the overlap. So if you point to send someone there, don't go there yourself. And it was just he was off balance, took one half step to his right, and that gave Trossard the opening. But what a finish! Wow, I mean that was absolutely dynamite. It was about the only place he could have put it that would have beaten Roofs. And yeah, they stepped it up, and that the way to try and break down a solid two banks of a 5 and a 4. You've got to try and play quickly round it, and we were rattled. We were rattled after the equaliser, and so fair play that they not they survived that. They rode it, because when it got to 2-1, you thought there's a third goal coming here, and it probably wasn't going to be for us. But yeah, they held it together and then rallied for the last 10, and just from almost from nowhere they found new strength, really.
Yeah, I want to come on to that, Gav, because I just found our reaction to going behind. Again, we have to emphasise it, against the league leaders Arsenal, who conceded 3 goals this season, who have won all four games in the Champions League without conceding a goal, who are favourites with the bookies to win the Champions League and the Premier League. And we took it to them. And Arsenal, again, realising what situation they're in, almost set up camp on the edge of their box, because they realised what was happening to them, and they realised this swell of momentum from the crowd as well, that kind of helped us on. But for this side, again, to have the character to push Arsenal back and say, no, we're not just going to let this game play out, which we've seen so often in the past against sides like that, where the game just peters out and you just think, well, okay, we had a good performance, but we're going to get beat. This side didn't accept that, and they pinned Arsenal in.
Till the end is a slogan, but it's also something we live and die by. It genuinely is. It's like, right, you've got 90 minutes plus stoppages to get a result. We eke out everything from every minute of every game, and we have done since Regis Lebris came in as Sunderland manager. I think it's you go behind, and the attitude is, all right then, let's go for it. His subs were a real sign of our intention. After 64 minutes, he brings on 3 attacking players. To me, that is, yes, it's brave, but it's also very calculated. He'll have prepared for that. He'll have thought, well, there is a possibility going into the latter part of the game, we're going to be losing. So what do I do to react to that? And, you wouldn't put it past him to have had a session with the players and went, right, this is what we do if we go behind and we're still in the game. Like, he's not just chucking players on for the sake of it. I remember bloody, not to dredge up some horrible old memories, but I remember when Steve Bruce was manager, and if we were getting beat, his tactic was just to look at the bench, go, right, how many attacking players have we got on the bench, hoy them all on the pitch and see if it works. Like, and it wasn't calculated and it wasn't intentional. Whereas with Lebris, he does things because he knows in his mind, if I do this, we've got a better chance of winning the game. And you're totally right. And I think it's just a sign of where we're at in the good place that we're in, Chris, that now we can go toe-to-toe with. I called them the best team in the world at the minute on the reaction pod. I think I still stand by that. They might not have played like the best team in the world yesterday. We didn't allow them to. But, for all intents and purposes, you mentioned it there. Before they played us, they'd conceded 3 goals all season. One of them was an absolute rocket from Szoboszlai in the game against Liverpool. The other one was Erling Haaland, who was the best striker on the planet at the minute. And the other we're not going to talk about because it happened at St James's Park.
I wondered where you were going with that.
But my point being is that they're practically unbreakable, or they have shown themselves to be unbreakable. And that did not daunt us. That didn't daunt Regis Lebris. He just went, whatever, He trusts his players so much. And importantly, they trust him. I think if he looks to his bench, you look at, he didn't come in on that moment, but Eliza Mayenda, he's barely had a sniff, has he, recently? But Mayenda still, he come on and he's enthusiastic and he knows his job. That's such a testament to the management style of Regis Labrise that, and I talked about it before, he calls them finishers, he doesn't call them substitutes. That is important terminology. It might, some people seem a bit sort of, management speak and all that, but the players really buy into it. They understand that even if they're not on the pitch from minute one, they've got a role to play. And I think Mikel Arteta probably hasn't been used to many teams doing what we did over the years. He's been used to having his own way, being able to dictate the way things go. I think Regis Labrise really showed his mettle with them substitutes because, they definitely helped change the game in our favour, I thought.
Yeah, well, I still think Lee Johnson might have taken some stick if he called them finishers, but anyway, but in that period, Jeff, because you look at there was a great chance with Hume played a ball forward, Ronaldo touched it, he could have taken a shot, it fell to Brobbey, Ray made a save. There was another one off a long throw where Ray had to almost make a double save, but it was offside. And then I just want to quickly touch on what Gav mentioned, 86 minutes, and this was a huge signal that Regis Labrise brought off Gertruida, brought on Mayenda, and at the same time, right alongside him, Arteta brought on an extra defender, which I think told you everything about the game. But then 93 minutes, it finally happened. And I just wanted to, again, just go backwards a little bit with this goal. Xhaka on the edge of the box. The crowd were willing him to shoot. In the 93rd minute, the ball came to him about 3 times, and he was so patient, just saying, no, we're going to wait for this opening. And in the end, Trey Hume played a fantastic reverse cross. He knew where Dan Ballard was. He just said, I'm gonna pick him out. And I don't think Arsenal were expecting it because of the position Trey Hume was in, because he kind of reversed it back. Great cross in. And of course, Dan Ballard doing his thing, causing chaos, getting that flick. And then Brian Brobbey, it was his moment that I thought might have been taken away by VAR, but unbelievable the way he got to it. I mean, again, this determination that he said, well, I'm going to get to this ball no matter what I need to do. But again, just the whole, everything around that goal, that we waited, 93rd minute, how patient we were. We knew it was going to come.
Yeah. I think two of the other nice things were that maybe it was the goal was scored in the time it took Eze to get off the pitch, and one of the slowest substitution walks I've seen for a long time. And to be fair, the ref did get it, and the crowd were howling, and he was standing there pointing at his watch. And by then Ray was time wasting as well with his goal kicks, so that was very sweet that it was in added time. Few things there. I mean, I'm delighted that Mayenda got on the pitch. When he brought Brobbey on, I thought, maybe should be putting Mayenda on because he's direct and he's a bit different, and he's you're right. He probably ever since the miss against Burnley, it seems like he's not been number one choice. But the crowd obviously felt it as well because they gave him a fantastic reception. I think that helped fire everyone up as well. Brobbey, I should say, if you remember the last time I was on the podcast was after the Palace game where he'd come on for the first time and the ball was bouncing off him and you think, well, who is this guy? To be fair, he was well short of much practice, and I know. I think I said at the time, a guy in front of me unfairly compared him to Josie Altidore, which is very cruel and obviously doesn't hold up at all because he's got that physical presence that Isidore hasn't. He worries defenders, and he was horizontal when he scored. It was astonishing acrobatics to get to where he was to put the ball in. And yeah, Xhaka, you're right. It's at least 2 or 3 times had been in that position, and the crowd were howling at him to shoot, and he was just no, this is the way to keep going at it. It just all added up to an absolutely fantastic end to the game. Although it didn't end there because then it looked like Arsenal were going to pinch it.
Yeah, that's it. Well, Gav, I mean, again, just that. Because, when fans build up that, we want something to happen, just take a shot, just do anything. But Xhaka knew exactly what he was doing, didn't he? He just waited for that perfect moment.
Yeah. It was, again, it's almost like there's somebody writing a script about how this, I think we've joked about this a few times, but Netflix got in at the wrong time, didn't it? Because can you imagine if you were making a series about Sunderland right now and the amount of late goals we score and just the stories that are woven through these games, absolutely outstanding. Just the way things seem to be playing out for us at the minute. And again, I kind of mentioned just on the Brobbey goal, the commentator saying that Gabriel doesn't often get roughed up like that. But I think Brobbey has really improved in recent weeks. I think Regis Labrise talked about it after the game and said he basically said something along the lines of, we felt like in recent weeks that he's shown something which has given us an indication that he's ready to make an impact on games. You think Jeff mentioned there, the guy, and I seen people saying it online, and it was pathetic. People comparing him to Altidore. The fella has obviously worked very hard to get into a position where he's now able to impact on games, and the difference he's made, particularly Chelsea, and then in this one, he's barely kicked the ball for Sunderland, yet he's probably had a hand in two of the most memorable moments of the season to date. We'll be looking back again at these games in years to come, and you'll be looking at Brian Brobbey making a massive impact on those performances. And I can't remember the last time we had a centre forward who was that strong. He's so strong. The way he holds people off is scary, because it's not like he's 6'5" and he's got the frame to hold people off in that sense because he's tall. He must be 5'10", 5'11". He's not the biggest in that sense, but he's just so bloody strong they kind of get near him. And it was sheer determination for the goal. I mean, yes, Arsenal fans will probably be looking at it and going, why is David Raya coming flying off his line? Right, okay. Yeah, that did have a part in it. But bro, he made something of it. It was a chance out of nout, really, when you think about it. And it was a really good finish, actually. When you consider his body position, the ball coming over, the fact that he's got the defender challenging him at the time, he kind of just gets his leg up there, but it's like a karate kick, isn't it? Sort of into the back of the net. It was a good goal, and I was worried that there was something wrong. I felt like, I must have missed something, yeah. When they were looking at it, and you had the Arsenal players surrounding the referee, I don't know what they were complaining about, because there was nothing to whinge about. There was absolutely nothing wrong with the goal. The seats in front of me took a right battering, because honest, the limbs when we scored, people were flying all over it. My hat came off my head. That was 4 rows away. I've got bruises all over my shins this morning and cuts, and I'm just looking at it now. My legs are cut to bits off that goal. But they're the moments you live for, innit? That's why we're a football fan. To be able to go out to games and see goals like that and come away with cut shins and all the rest of it. And that's thanks in no small part to Brian Brobbey.
Yeah, wouldn't have it any other way. But as you mentioned, Jeff, 96th minute, and there was a save by Roofs, and it spilled out into the 6-yard box, and you think, oh no, your mind just goes back to all those moments for years and years where these have gone the other way for Sunderland, and they've always gone the other way for Sunderland. But on this occasion, Dan Ballard came in from nowhere. Now, in a past life, I used to be a defender, not very good one, but I used to be a defender. Now, back in the day, this was like scoring a goal. But Dan Ballard did this block and scored a goal. But I bet you he'll have to think twice if you ask him which one he preferred, whether it was scoring the goal or making this block, because he just threw his whole body in front of that.
Yeah, it was fantastic. You were just waiting for the net to move, weren't you? Yeah. But yeah, but it's symptomatic of what they do. It's not the first time in the last few seasons that defenders like Dan have got in blocks like that. They are prepared to put their body on the line, because when the ball's being propelled at you from that range at that speed, it's quite possible it's going to cause you some pain. But yeah, what a fantastic play. I think he was asked about it. I did listen to the whole Match of the Day interview, and he was asked about it, and he said, was it the Sky one? He said, yeah, it was great. He said, yeah, but actually scoring was even better.
Oh, right. So there you go.
But yeah, and thoroughly deserved. It was no more than Sunderland deserved last night.
Yeah, he'd be thrown out of the Defenders Union for saying things like that. But Gav, look, 2-2 felt like a win. Another last-minute goal to celebrate and feel good about. The block as well came into the equation. But it's the first time this season Arsenal have conceded 2. We've went toe to toe with the league leaders. we've almost doubled the goals they've conceded in the league this season after 11 games. I mean, again, I've been saying in previous weeks that this side just keeps surprising us. But actually, it's getting to the point now where they're not surprising us anymore because you trust this side now.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, is there a bigger test than Arsenal right now? And we've passed it in my eyes. You know, we say it feels like a win, but it does. And the big thing was what were the hurdles coming into this game? It was Arsenal barely concede shots, never mind goals, and the top of the league and flying. For me, we matched them toe to toe. First half, we were the better team, easily the better team. I went to half time and was like, we're good value for this lead. So for 45 minutes, Sunderland were the better team. I would say over the span of 90 minutes, we were the better team. I think they had a period of about 25 minutes in the second half where they were on top. Otherwise, you know, we were probably the better team. And yeah, we're finding ways to score goals. People are fearing playing us. I genuinely think Arsenal didn't want this game. I don't think they were enjoying it at all. And you've got to look at this now, Chris, and say we're on for a top 8 finish if we carry on the way we're going. Sunderland, we need to stop talking ourselves down. We can finish in a European place this season. What indication have we had from this team after 11 games to show we're not capable of that? It's going to take something to go seriously wrong this season for Sunderland's trajectory to seriously decline. For us to drop down and down and down the table, we're going to have to like some sort of mentality issue, loads of injuries to the players who are so important on the pitch. I don't know what it is, but it would take something pretty drastic for us to stop picking up points the way we're picking up points. And honestly, let's stop talking ourselves down and start talking ourselves up. We are 4th for a reason. We deserve to be there. You could argue we could have been higher. You know, if we'd got that win against Everton, 2 points more, we'd have been second place. If we'd won yesterday, we'd been in second place. The point being, we're there on merit, and I am officially carried away. Yeah.
Well, I was going to say, me and Jeff's got big grins on our faces, and I was going to ask you the obvious question, Jeff: is Gav getting carried away?
Well, why not? Like, as I said at the start, you've got to enjoy it. You got to make the most of it. Someone, I haven't checked this one out, but someone in the pub last night said apparently we've got as many points as Leicester had at this stage when they went on to win the league, which is a good stat if it's true. Obviously, AFCON is going to be a major test, Christmas and New Year, without a handful of players, more so than most of our rivals. Is going to be a massive test. And yeah, I mean, I still remember the days of the early 2000s of being around second place into January and then just tailing away. Still finishing 7th, which would have got into Europe. But again, I've said this for years to mates of mine. A lot of us at my age, we've seen 50% of Sunderland's European games because we saw 2 of the 2 home games out of the 4 that we played in 73, 74. But since then, I've been around Europe, all over Europe with Newcastle and with Middlesbrough reporting on the games, and there's nothing like it. There's nothing like being abroad and seeing someone with the same colours, from thousands of miles away, and you know exactly why they're there. And playing in Europe is just special, and it would be amazing if this club, something I never thought would happen in my lifetime. If it did happen again, I promise you guys, you would love it.
Yeah, well, there you go. We've got Jeff Brown talking about Leicester City and the Dilly Dongs and playing in Europe. So I couldn't think of a better place to end this podcast. So that just leaves me to say thank you very much, Gav. Always a pleasure. Thank you for getting up so soon after you got in the house, mate.
No bother. I'd get up at any time to talk about Sunderland. I don't mind.
And Jeff, always a pleasure. And thank you so much for your time and getting up so early for us.
No, it's been great. Thanks, Chris.
Good stuff. And thanks again, everyone, for listening. Don't forget, we'll have loads and loads of reaction on the Roker Report website. And we're going into the 3rd international break in 11 games, which is ridiculous. But it does mean we're going to have loads on How We're the Podcast, and we'll keep going with our daily releases on How We're the Podcast, so we'll have loads during the next couple of weeks. So look out for all of that. But from us, it's bye for now.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
If we knew more about our sleep, what would we do differently? Would we go to bed at a consistent time or take steps to reduce interruptions to our sleep? With the all-new Sleep Score, Apple Watch measures your bedtime consistency, interruptions, and sleep duration. Then, every morning it combines these factors into an easy-to-understand score from 1 to 100. So you'll know how to take the quality of your sleep from good to excellent. Introducing the new Sleep Score on Apple Watch. iPhone 11 or later required.